Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We are from group 15. Today we will present about psychological dakwah through art and creativity, an analysis of the film Ketika Cinta Bertasbih. Before I begin, I would like to introduce my group members. Our group consists of Siti Hajar, Yasmin Hani, Helwani, Anand Mardia and myself, Adli Nuha binti Abdul Aziz, metric number 1221395. Let's continue to the introduction. In today's era, Islamic Dawah is no longer limited to sermons. It now uses films, theatre, and visual arts to deliver messages in ways that affect the audience emotionally and psychologically. Islamic art is not just for entertainment, it shapes moral and spiritual consciousness. This is closely related to the concept of psychological dawah, which influences a person's thoughts, emotions, and behavior through subtle and value-based approaches. Ketika Cinta Bertasbih Part 1 is an excellent example because it conveys Islamic values such as patience, sincerity, tawakal, and perseverance through storytelling. Instead of preaching directly, the film touches the audience through emotional conflict and relatable struggles. Next, research scope. Our study focuses only on part 1 of the film. We analyze how narrative structure, character development, dialogue, cinematography, and music contribute to psychological dawah. We also examine how the film impacts viewers emotionally and spiritually, such as increasing empathy, motivation, and moral reflection. Next, we explore how Islamic virtues are portrayed through the characters' actions, which may influence the audience's attitudes. Finally, we focus on indirect dakwah or dakwah bilhal, where messages are delivered through behavior and storyline rather than direct instruction.
My name is Ainul Mardia binti Zulkifli. My metric number is 1221383. Now I will continue with the research objectives. This study aims to explore the psychological aspects of da'wah as portrayed in the film Ketika Cinta Bertasbih Part 1. It focuses on how artistic and creative elements such as character development, music, visual storytelling, and dialogue can effectively convey Islamic message to the audience. Additionally, the study examines how the character's emotion, behavior, and interaction reflect Islamic preaching and moral guidance. Finally, it seeks to evaluate the effectiveness of film as a medium for modern da'wah, highlighting its potential to engage viewers both emotionally and cognitively. Moving on the problem statement, in today's era, young people are more exposed to films and digital media than traditional religious lectures. As a result, Islamic themed films have become an alternative medium for delivering da'wah. However, research on this topic is still limited. Most previous studies focus only on how audience perceive or accept Islamic films without exploring how these films actually affect viewers' emotion, attitude, behavior, or spiritual growth. This shows a gap in understanding in psychological impact of Islamic films. Therefore, this study aims to examine how storytelling and creative elements in films can influence viewers' moral reflection and spiritual awareness more deeply, providing insight into the effectiveness of films as a medium for da'wah. Next, I will continue on the justification of the study. This study is important because it explores the psychological impact of Islamic films as a medium for da'wah, an area that is still under research. Films not only reflect the filmmaker's perspective but also influence attitude, behavior, and values. By looking at how art and creativity engage viewers emotionally and cognitively, this study provides useful insight for filmmakers, educators, and da'wah practitioners. It also helps young audience critically understand how films affect their moral thinking and spiritual growth, showing that films can be an effective tool for da'wah alongside traditional religious education.
My name is Siti Hajar binti Razali. My metric number 1221359. I will explain our research methodology and research design. For this study, we focus on understanding the psychological development and dakwah message in the film Ketika Cinta Bertasbih. We use a qualitative approach because it allows us to explore the film in a deeper and more detailed way. Instead of treating it just entertainment, we analyze it as a cultural text to see how emotion, moral, and spiritual growth are portrayed. In terms of research design, we use qualitative content analysis. This means we look at the storyline, visual, symbol, character development, and emotional expression. Through the design, we can identify the psychological themes, emotional growth of the character, and the dakwah message shown through their action. dialogue and behavior. Overall, this approach helps us understanding the film Islamic value and its deeper psychological meaning. For data, we rely on both primary and secondary sources. Our primary source is the film Ketika, Cinta, Bertasbih. We watch it multiple times to ensure no detail is missed. According to Fleet, repeated viewing is important for reliable qualitative analysis. During viewing, we take a systematic notes on plot, character psychology, religious message, emotion, visual symbolism, narrative transition, and key dialogue. This progressive focusing helps us refine our analysis as we understanding the film more deeply. For scene analysis, we use a purposeful sampling to select scenes that are rich in psychological, moral, or dakwah content as recommended by Rose. Selected scenes include internal conflict, interaction with the family, emotional moments like love, passion, and perseverance, and dialogue promoting Islamic virtue. Each scene is transcribed with both verbal and non-verbal element, including gesture, expression, and cinematography. For secondary data, this study used three main sources. First, psychology literature help us understanding emotion, motivation, and how people learn from others. Bandura social learning theory explain how character in Ketika, Cinta, Bertasbih learn value by observing parents, teacher, and friends. This helps us see how Azam become more resilient, how characters follow religious behavior from their environment, and how emotional control is shaped by Islamic teaching. Second, Islamic dakwah literature guides our understanding of the film religious message. Abdullah stated that dakwah in media should highlight patience, sincerity, compassion, and perseverance. With Islamic communication theory, we can see how the film teach value through role model, good manners, and story that show spiritual transformation. Lastly, film and narrative study help us analyze visual technique. Scholars like Botworth, Thompson explain how camera angle, lighting, narrative flow, character framing, and visual symbols create meaning. This technique strengthen both the psychological and dakwah message presented in the film. Next is thematic analysis. After watching the film multiple times, we start by taking detailed notes on dialogue, action, and visual. Then we assign code to key moments that show important psychological or moral lesson. These codes are grouped into larger themes like resilience, spiritual growth, and love as a task. Finally, we refine the theme to ensure they truly reflect the message present in the film and align with our research objective. In psychological analysis, we look at three main aspects. First, emotion, where we observe how feeling like fear, passion, love, and frustration influence the character, action, and spiritual growth. For example, Azam's emotional struggle made him more patient and reliant on Allah. Second is social learning, which show how characters learn by observing others. In the film, family member, teacher, and the community become role models who guide the character behavior and value. Lastly, we examine cognitive process, which focus on how characters think and make decisions. For instance, Anna's choice about marriage and her future come from her internal reflection, personal value, and strong faith. These three elements help us understanding the deeper psychological journey of the character.
My name is Helwani binti Abdul Muttalib, metric number 1221379. Next, I will present the first finding, which is the emotional and psychological impact on viewers. The film creates deep emotional reactions, especially through Azam's struggle with conflict, financial pressure, studies, and spirituality. These challenges feel very real and relatable, so viewers naturally empathize with him and start reflecting on their own life. Research shows that religion-related films often created a therapeutic emotional arch which increased spiritual awareness. The emotional engagement in this film also influenced moral reasoning, consistent with media psychology by Tanz. For example, scenes such as Azam applying for Al-Azhar approval or his emotional tension with Anna act as psychological triggers for viewers to think about their own choices. Through repeated emotional scenes, viewers begin to internalize the values shown in the film. They actively interpret Azam's decision, which creates a multi-layered emotional and cognitive experience. The second finding focuses on the representation of Islamic values and dakwah bil hal. In this film, dakwah is shown not through direct preaching, but through action, behavior, and real-life situation. This is known as dakwah bil hal. The characters demonstrate values like honesty, passion, sincerity, forgiveness, and repentance. This makes Islamic values more practical and relatable for viewers. Religious films are also effective because they combine aesthetic elements with spiritual message, which increase the chance that viewers will internalize the values. Example in the film include scenes of charity, mentorship, and forgiveness, which clearly portray Islamic ethics in daily life. The narrative also includes ethical dilemmas that encourage viewers to reflect on their own actions. For example, Azam balances work, study, and ibadah show resilience and tawakal. This supports modern perspective on moral psychology, where engagement leads to stronger learning. The third finding is about artistic and cinematic techniques. The film used cinematography, music, lighting, and symbolism to strengthen both emotional and spiritual impact. These artistic elements help viewers understand the moral message more deeply. For example, the music highlights emotional moments and guides the viewer's feeling. Visual motifs such as prayer scenes, landscape, and symbolic lighting reinforce the spiritual meanings of each scene. Dialogue in the film also play a big role. It carries Islamic values both explicitly and implicitly, which help anchor the emotional and cognitive understanding of the message. From the perspective of Bandura social learning theory, viewers learn by observing role models like teachers, family members, and elders. Because the film used multiple sensory elements, viewers process ethical dilemmas more effectively. Overall, the combination of narrative and aesthetic tools make the film a very effective medium for dakwah.
My name is Minhani Binti Azam, number matric 1221361. For discussion, first, narrative art and storyline as a preaching medium, which is Azam's journey, emphasizes the practical values of dakwah through his pursuit of knowledge, halal sustenance, and dignity. Second, character building as dakwah based on example, which is the characters of Azam and Ana, exemplify ideal Muslim morality, portray the responsibility, civilization, and adherence to Sharia. The audience is presented with examples of good morals that can be emulated by them. Third, the art of dialogue as a subtle conveyor of dakwah. The dialogue in this film is framed with wisdom and literary elements like advice, reminders, and tazkirah, which are delivered naturally through the character's social interaction, not in teaching manner. For suggestion, there are 4 suggestions, which is first is emphasizing faith and devotion to Allah Subhanahu Wa Taala, the Almighty, and the one who has the will over things. And second is adding more of moral education in a practical way, like learn how to manage domestic conflict, how to maintain friendship, and also how to face tests related to love. And third is strengthen the role of the scholars. And fourth is adding the psychological dimension of the character, which is learn how to control emotions when angry and stressed, and learn also how to forgive people who have made a mistake to us. Overall, for this film, it proves the art can be an effective medium for conveying Islamic values, like a realistic narrative, dialogues full of wisdom, symbolic visuals, and touching music make the message of Islam is easier to accept and appreciate by the audience.